Now I'm on chapter 13, Santos Jr. So, after the death of Whitechapel the slave, Santos Jr. is having an imaginary dialogue with Whitechapel. And that imaginary dialogue with Whitechapel actually reveals a desire to explain himself to the old man and perhaps even to receive his pardon on the action that he has done. So Santos Jr. is having an imaginary dialogue with Whitechapel here. Uncover him. So you are really dead, old man. I need to highlight some of the sentences. So you are really dead, old man. Uncover him. So you are really dead, old man. You look like you could be taking a nap because that's how he usually do. He couldn't believe that he's dead. That's all. You look like you could be taking a nap, not dead. I really thought you would outlive us all, not curled up like this. Um, Tight as a nut in a shell, peaceable, like you have sneaked off into a quiet corner for one of your cat naps in the middle of the day. That's what kept you living so long, I bet. While the rest of us were busy sweating in the sun, you were nowhere to be found because you were curled up like a cat in a woman's lap. Except the lap is the hard ground. We'll bury you here, old man. I like you. He says, I like you, though I struck you with these very hands. I will dig your grave. I hit you because you didn't know when to hold your peace. I shouldn't have hit you, but contradicted me in front of everyone. My status as an overseer was undermined before the slaves who needed to see it and was reasserted right away. So I hit you. You will recall it wasn't hard. There was no blood. You hardly swayed. If you rocked back on your heels, it was to avoid the impact of what you wrongly guessed would be a fist. Now we could see a little bit of regret from the part of from Santos Jr. A little bit of regret. He admits that he was, but still he is trying to. He is apologizing, and at the same time he is trying to cover up his sins and he cover up his actions, and he's trying to say that he admits that he was merely defending his position as an overseer because he wanted to reassert his power. That's why he did that. So he is regretting, but at the same time he couldn't accept the fact that he was undermined in front of everyone. And that's the reason why he says, I have hit you at that moment. I couldn't strike you. You showed me how things. Now he's explaining. We are actually hearing a very admiration kind of tone here. I couldn't strike you because you showed me how to run things. My father spoke highly of you. You were a better overseer than I. There I was. Thinking I was the first one to rise in the morning, setting an example for everyone, and you were out even before me. Always first and last in everything. I am sorry about your son. Again, saying, I'm sorry about your son, but not my brother, because I knew him only as a son of a slave. Because at the time of, at that moment when Santos Jr. Was hitting the, killed the son, killed Chapel, he didn't knew that he was actually his half brother. So that's why he says that I didn't knew. I am sorry about your son, but I didn't know that he was my brother. I knew him only as a son of a slave. He was a trouble from the day he talked. See, at the very moment he started with a kind of admiration. Tone is very admiration, admiring him. Um, but later, even says that you are better overseer than I. Even he is using that particular phrase, you were better overseer than I. That actually suggests that Whitechapel cannot be considered inferior to him in any way, despite their kind of nominal inequality on the plantation. So he is giving a respect and admiration to Whitechapel, but at the same time, he makes it clear that he was in trouble from the day he walked, referring to Chapel. He not only asked questions, but when you give him an answer, he was never satisfied. He always asked, why this, why that? That is the way things are. That's why. And neither you nor anyone else is going to change them. No matter what you say or do. So do your job and I'll do mine and things will be fine. But no, not your headstrong son. He couldn't have been yours. I know that now. at this moment he says that he is your son, is a headstrong son, and then he says again that he couldn't have been yours. He is not yours. I know that now. He did not demonstrate an ounce of common sense, of your common sense. Now, again, admiration, patronizing kind of tone. You are a person of common sense, but your son did not even demonstrate an ounce of your common sense. His spirit was wild, yours tame. So, the contradiction or the contrary attitudes between Whitechapel and Chapel. His spirit, Chapel's spirit was wild, yours, Whitechapel, yours were tame. His manners uncouth, yours impeccable. I see nothing of my father in him, nor of myself. So at this point, he makes it very clear that he doesn't, he is not like you, neither like you, nor like my father. So he couldn't accept the fact that Chapel was such a rebel. Now, what did you do wrong? What did you do wrong, old man, to raise a son whose nature was so contrary to your own? And again, whose nature, a son whose nature was so contrary to your own. All those years you taught you nothing. All those years taught you nothing. Only you could have stopped him from running. Only you could have saved him. See, look, he is transferring the blame to Whitechapel. Only you could have stopped him from running. Only you could have saved him. Look at the exclusive words. And that exclusive word actually, through that word, Digor is actually trying to show how Santos Jr. is blaming or blaming how he blames Whitechapel, handing over the blame to Whitechapel. You knew, again, you knew he might run. We all did, but choose not to believe he would actually do it. Not after all the threats from me, my deputy, and even Mr. Whitechapel. Too many, too many, too many instances of runaways not being found were Mr. Whitechapel's words. Too expensive. Too much of his planted seeds of discontent on the plantation which sprouted anarchy. The next man to leave the plantation without due authority to do so would be made an example of a public whipping. Mr. Whitechapel even specified the number of lashes, 200. Said he had read it in the Virginian in reply to a query from one of the readers about a just punishment for a crime that was becoming a plague on the plantation and would certainly kill them off in their entirety unless the plague were treated in a swift, decisive manner. 200 lashes it had to be, he was warned. Even if you had shouted to me that I was killing my half brother, I would have no choice but to carry out the punishment. Of all the young slaves, he was the one deemed most likely to run away. You remember, we even confined him to duties closer to the house where an eye could be kept on him. You were assigned to watch him. Again, blames. He is shifting the blame. He's constantly trying to defend his action. Santos Jr. is trying to defending his actions. He's trying to defend his actions. At first, he tries to pass the blame to Whitechapel, then to Mr. Whitechapel, because Mr. Whitechapel, he's specifying that Mr. Whitechapel even specified the number of lashes. And even if you were shouting that he is my half brother, I would have had no choice but to carry out the punishment because of the order from Mr. Whitechapel. So he's constantly shifting the blame to other people. You were assigned to watch him. You were assigned to watch him. The man who never shut his eyes. You are a person who never shut his eyes. How did he slip out of your sight? How did, again, blame on him? What could I do? Mr. Whitechapel did issue orders for me to wait, do nothing until his return. But what do you think he would have said? Release the dear boy. We were right all along. We said he had run, and he did run. Should we have rewarded him for it was 3 square meals a day and the lightest duties on the plantation, just like his father. Mr. Whitechapel may have reduced the number of lashes. He may even have said, go light on the whip, but the punishment would have happened. Of that I am certain. Again, here now he is shifting the blame to Mr. Whitechapel because he says that Mr. Whitechapel, even if Mr. Whitechapel would be back by the time, he would have done the same thing. This is a business, not a charity. Again, look at his attitude. He says that slavery is a business, not a charity. You don't work for your own living. You work to make Mr. Whitechapel richer. Your lives aren't yours, but my father's son, the son you reared, Forgot that. Granted, you never did. You never knew. You never knew your place. You knew your place, old man. I like you for that. Again, he is making it very clear that this is a business and this is not a charity. So his attitude, his racial attitude, is very clear at that point. And he says that you don't work for your own living, you work to make Mr. Whitechapel richer. Your lives aren't yours. Again, the inhumanity and the inherent racism. My father's son, the son you read, forgot that. Granted, you never did. You knew your place, old man. I like you for that. You always behaved as if you knew your place. You behaved like a slave. And that's the reason why I like you. I like you for that. What a child's way of sleeping you have, curled up neat as a nut. Neat as a nut. I tried to catch you sleeping during the day. Now he's recounting an instance where he actually tried to catch Whitechapel sleeping during the day. The one time I crept upon you and I was certain you were asleep, you opened your eyes and winked at me. My stick was raised to deliver a stinging surprise to you, but that wink of yours froze the stick over my head until you straightened up on your feet and wobbled away without a word. So full of tricks paraded as innocence. Death you got though. You had nothing up your sleeves when it came to death, so you just lay down and curled up and died. So he's just recounting an incident where Whitechapel just winked at him when he was about to whip and he escaped. At the same time, now he says that you are a person full of tricks, paraded as innocence, but death got you now. Death got you though. You had nothing up your sleeve when it came to death, so you just lay down and curled up and died. Now I will bury you. Now he says that I will bury you. You will get a grave with a stone. You were a slave until death, an example to your race. Now again, the whole admiration is because he behaved. He was actually a good slave and he knew his position. That actually shows that. So Digore is actually trying to show that there is an inherent racism in the minds of the people, and that's why when someone is behaving like a slave, someone who is obedient, they just love him. And that's what we actually we could see this. Even Santos Jr. He gives that kind of respect to Whitechapel because he was a good slave. Now I will bury you. You will get a grave with a stone. You were a slave until death, an example to your race. Centenarian, again he calls him centenarian, 100 years old. Centenarian, you look like a child now. Cover him and move him into the barn. It's cool in there and quiet. Wake everyone. Tell them the old man is to be buried this morning before their duties. I will tell Mr. Whitechapel. He will take it badly. He liked Whitechapel, thought as long as he was around the plantation would profit. He liked Whitechapel, thought as long as he was around the plantation would profit. Um, so he actually again talking about the profit part. What's supposed to happen now? Superstitious nonsense. Whitechapel lived long, that's all. There is no mystery. Some men are born strong, others weak. Whitechapel was strong. What did he do with his life? Slave, a good slave. But a slave, however, one chooses to look at it. I wouldn't want to live as long as a slave. I don't want to die alone in the open with nothing to my name. I wouldn't want to live as long as a slave. I don't want to die alone in the open with nothing to my name. So beautiful, patronizing tone, admiration, full of admiration. Um, don't move him without covering first. He was a good man. Cover him with my jacket. Now he's giving his jacket. Cover him with my jacket. Kind of respect. I offer it to you, old man, in death. I could never offer it to you while you lived. No, no law said I couldn't. It just isn't done. I'm sorry. Again, he asks sorry. I did not knowingly kill my half brother. He was weaker, more tired than I thought. I did not want him dead, just a lesson taught him for all to see, that's all. Again, asking pardon and sorry. You are curled like a nut in a shell, but you must have been cold before you couldn't feel a cold anymore. So many similes, like a nut in a shell, simile, simile. Again, My jacket is too late to warm you. Again, that indicates that his respect is too late. It covers your whole body, old man. I want him buried in the jacket unless his people object. Keep it on him, you hear? It's as old as him. It belonged to my father. So the jacket is as old as him because the jacket actually belonged to his father, Santos Sr. Whitechapel was the only man besides me who worked alongside him and remembers him. So just like me, it is just, except me, it is just Whitechapel who actually worked with my father. What would my father have done? He would not have countenanced any of this, I'm sure. What I did to your son was an emulation of my father's likeliest action had he been in the same situation. He advocated firm hand always. He said ambiguity towards a slave was taken as a sign of weakness. That is his attitude, his dad's attitude. His dad's attitude is, where is that? He advocated a firm hand always. He said ambiguity towards a slave. I wanted to change the color. Where is it? Let me just change the color. Come on. All right. He advocated a firm hand always. He said ambiguity towards a slave was taken as a sign of weakness. Privately, he disagreed with Mr. Whitechapel but carried out orders. I am his son, and I think like him. You yourself said I resembled him, that I was my father's young self, but my memory of him is sullied. My memory of his son, of him is actually sullied. Sullied in the sense here, it's actually corrupted, placed under suspicion. He lacked your courage because Whitechapel, Mr. Santos Jr. says that his father, Mr. Santos Sr., lacked your courage, Whitechapel. If you were white, I would have wanted you as my father. The jacket is rightly yours. Damn it, keep him covered. So now look at his attitude again. He is full of admiration for Whitechapel, but again he stresses on the fact that if you were white, I would have wanted you as my father. So it's all based on that inherent racism. So there are so many points to note here. One is about the symbolism of the jacket. That jacket is a bit symbolic. Symbolism. So it can be the symbol of that giving that jacket. It can be a symbol of respect. It can be a symbol of contrition. It can be a symbol of contrition. What do you mean by contrition? Symbol of contrition. Symbol of contrition. Contrition in the sense like a sorrow for doing sin, which actually arises from a fear of damnation, a kind of feeling a feeling of sorry, symbol of contrition. So that jacket can be a symbol of respect, it can be a symbol of contrition. So keep that in mind. And when you come towards the end, we could actually see this is a view passed generationally about whipping slaves and the color, the racism that's inherent deep in their mind. So, despite his deep seated racism, Santos Jr. is capable of a little bit of self examination. He is at least ready to do some kind of self examination, and he is even ready to accept a black slave as a father figure. So, that is something that he has done, something good. He actually examines his life. The contradictions inherent in Santos Jr.'s words and actions show the difficulty in such an intolerant, violent filled society of reconciling private feelings with public obligations marked by racism and the need to dominate over others. See, his actions and words are contradictory. Santos Jr.'s words and his actions are contradictory. He pays all the respect to that person, but his actions have been different. So the contradictions inherent, which is already in Santos Jr.'s words and actions, that actually shows the difficulty that he is facing in an intolerant, in such a violent filled society. In such a violent filled, inherently racist society, it is so hard, and it is so hard of reconciling his private feelings with public obligation. He just need to follow what is in the society. He just need to be like the people in the society. He wanted to dominate over the others, and that dominant white culture you can actually see here, dominancy or the dominant white culture, which is actually inherent in the people, and that's why he's having that contradictory words and the contradictions in his words and actions. Now, the last chapter here, this one is an epilogue. Epilogue, as you know, the play, the novella started with a prologue. Now, like a bookend, towards the end, here is an epilogue. And this is more like Whitechapel's imaginary conversation with his son, Chapel. And it's back in time, so it's not after his death, it's before his death. Whitechapel back in time. Okay, as I told you before, this is non-linear, so this is back in time. This is what I imagine saying to him: my son, you have to answer the call of your blood. You were born half a slave, half the master of your own destiny. You shake your head at me because you can see only part of my argument. The rest of it takes you from me. I know that you belong to another way of life. Why do you think he belongs to another way of life? Because he's son of Santos Senior. Yet I tell you everything I know, everything I see and hear, and work out for myself as a slave. I tell you because I must. It should suit a son of mine, born a total slave. Whatever I said should have suited a son of mine, a totally born as a total slave. But you are different. Your case is different, but not with your blood. Your blood, there is a difference in your blood. You're half white and half black. What I say can never be enough for you. I want to keep you alive, that's all. My whole intention was to keep you alive. I do not care about your happiness. Your life is everything to me. And that's the philosophy of Whitechapel. He doesn't care about happiness, he just cares about the life that he has got. I fail you as a father. I'm insufficient. All my years are insufficient. So he is very, Whitechapel is making it clear that for him, survival is more important than happiness. That is his view because, as I told you before, he doesn't like to look back to his past. He doesn't like to look to the future. He just lives in the present. He is a man who lives in the present. And for him, happiness is not important. Life, he just need to have that son with him. Life is important. That's why he behaved like that. What you shout in your sleep is a young man dreaming. I hear, but pretend I'm deaf. Her name is a young man dreaming, Lydia. A dream of love, desire, but a dream all the same. Something that cannot be possessed, that will remain confined to the realm of sleep, fantasy. Now, Whitechapel clearly know that Chapel, while he was about to die, Whitechapel's last moments, he was actually calling Lydia's names. But Whitechapel clearly know that it is something that cannot be possessed, that will remain confined to the realm of sleep, fantasy. I think it is healthy that you express signs of desire, manhood blossoming in sleep. So this is Whitechapel's view is that this is not going to be achieved, or even the dream of Lydia is not going to be achieved. It is just confined to the realm of sleep and fantasy. He is an experienced slave, Whitechapel. That's why he's of that view. Once awake, it will take a different form. I tell myself, one suited to your life, your circumstances. So once you're awake, in dream, Lydia is fine. Lydia is beautiful. But once you're awake from dream, I tell myself, one suited to your life, your circumstances. I see now that the name Lydia is a part of the dream you try to make a part of your life, to choose, to have, to keep. Lydia is a part of it. Which part I do not know. I'm wrong in many things. Now he is clarifying that. Whitechapel stresses that I'm wrong in many things. Shall I tell you about your blood? The two races are distributed evenly in it. Shall I help you prepare for a life elsewhere? Where? This is the only place I know. Maybe I'm wrong. I wonder to myself as I see myself doing it. Wrong to tell the master that my son is gone and say I want him back under my guidance and protection. Then I ask myself after I see the entire scene, what guidance, what protection? So, at first, when he is actually confessing to the master that his son has taken the river path, he actually thought that, or Whitechapel actually thought that there will be guidance and protection from the part of Mr. Whitechapel. But now he realizes the fact that, or now he realizes that he was actually wrong. He realizes that his submissiveness was wrong. There was no one. He realizes that there was no one to guide him and protect him. So that's why he says, maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong in many things. All the time you are listening, all the time you are listening to your blood and following the dictates of your dreams. 12 daughters. I hear myself say to someone who is impressed to hear it, then I tell myself as if I must counter this good thought with a bad one. Yet I cannot rear a son, one son. Again, he says that I have been wrong all my days. I'm an old man. My skin is tight over my joints, so tight it shines even at night. Elsewhere on this body, skin hangs as if about to drop off, or gathers, creases, and cracks, and looks more like the muddy bottom of a dried up river than skin. Simile is there. Again, here this chapter in epilogue, Whitechapel actually realizes his philosophy. Whitechapel realizes that his philosophy of obedience to slavery was actually wrong. That has actually backfired against him. He realizes that slavery is inherently unjust and oppressive system. At that point, he is actually realizes that he actually realizes that slavery is inherently unjust. Slavery is inherently unjust and oppressive, and an oppressive system. He believes that it's at this moment, he realizes that slavery is inherently unjust and it's an oppressive system. And this suggests that the story offered in this page is again next. You could see that in the next paragraph, too much has happened to put right. I would need another life. I would need another life to make everything right. That's what he says. I would need another life. I would need another life, no, several lives, another 100 years, no more, to unravel this knotted mess. Too tried, too tired even to begin. Wouldn't know where or how. Maybe what is done is done. It cannot now be undone, only understood. Now I can't do anything. Whatever I have done is wrong. It is so hard to unravel this knot. Others might understand. They will look and see a man who has too many days and nights. They will see a time when a short life was the best life to live under such circumstances, such conditions. See, I was a person who believes that long life, or they will look and see a man who has too many days and nights. That's all about Whitechapel. People will think that I had too many days and nights. But now he realizes that people will realize that it is better to have a short life in such circumstances. They will see a time when a short life was the best life to live under such conditions, a short life like Chapel's. So now he realizes that it is better to die like Chapel rather than live long like himself. The master is daylight, the slave is night. A complete day needs both light and dark. The day cannot be broken in two to leave each half to itself. Nor can the master hope to rule the day and the night along with it forever. So that indicates that slavery cannot go forever. Slavery is a long day of the master over the slave and of the night's turn to days. But how long can the master's daylight continue to roll over nights? He is actually questioning. He questions the existence of hope here. He questions the existence of hope. How long can slavery exist? That's what he's actually trying to. So the daylight and night, there is a metaphor. It's a comparison, comparing and daylight to the master and slave to the night. It's a metaphor. It's a beautiful metaphor there. But how long? How long can slavery exist? That's what he is trying to ask. How long? How long can slavery exist? Now he says that my head is too heavy for these shoulders. Eyes that have seen too much for one body, rest. Mouth that has kept too much to itself, utter. Night and day these eyes are open. Night and day this mouth refuses to speak, cannot begin to speak, has too much to say. The mouth turns down. All the things it has never managed to have soared there. The lines deepen in time. The eyes deaden, gradually losing light to darkness. looking without bothering to see, staring but reacting to nothing, however dramatic, personal, grand final. The eyes see their own death and do not flicker. The mouth tastes death and does not move. Death has always been there. Death brings more soreness. Mouth is almost pleased to recognize death as a lifelong companion, something always present in those sore corners. Eyes feel the same. The light going out is death's shadow. Death sitting up suddenly behind the plate glass of the eyes. So he is actually accepting the moment of death. So it's acceptance of the moment of death. He is accepting acceptance of the moment of death. Acceptance of the moment of death. Whitechapel is just accepting death. I must sit down. No, lie down. Rest these eyes. Now he says that I have to rest these eyes. Tired of trying not to see. Rest this mouth. Stop tasting the sourness there. Forget memory is a pain trying to resurrect itself. Forget memory is a pain trying to resurrect itself. Now he says that I need to rest this. I need to stop. I need to stop tasting the sourness there. Forget. I just want to forget. Memory is a pain trying to resurrect itself. So he's embracing death. He's um, trying to stay alive. Like memory is a pain trying to. Memory is always trying to stay alive. It's a pain trying to resurrect itself. We could see very short, sharp sentences here. Short, sharp sentences. Short, sharp sentences. Whitechapel, we could actually see Whitechapel embracing death. Whitechapel embraces, welcomes, embraces death. Whitechapel welcomes and embraces death. And he embraces death as a relief from the lifetime of painful memories, from the lifetime of painful memories, from the lifetime of painful memories he has carried with him, and he embraces the end of his life as a way to finally forget. So he embraces the end of his life, embraces the end of his life as a way to finally forget. So there is a reference to the title, memory, longest memory. Memory is a pain trying to resurrect itself. So he is embracing death because he feels that at least with death, he will be able to forget all these traumatic memories. And that is the end of this novella, the beautiful novella, The Longest Memory. Thanks for listening, guys. Again, as I told you at the very beginning, I didn't get a chance to connect it to the 7 stages. I have just done the textual analysis, and that too, as I told you, it was very brief. I couldn't go in depth because of our time limit. But when we discuss about themes, we will bring in more discussions. We will try and find some similarities and differences between The Longest Memory and 7 stages. So stay tuned to my videos more. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. See you soon. Take care.